So I want you to take a little ride with me before you start going down this pathway with us to start understanding hand and arm function in the swing shape. So here's a good analogy for a lot of you to kind of get into your brain. I want you to think about what a passive arm function would be in the golf swing. Jace, let's go ahead and load up to the top of the swing, lead arm only. Now, if we were to think about what the lead arm did to get into this position, it didn't really do much. All it did was just really elevate. And the muscles that are in the shoulder really started to help facilitate that movement alone. But what we went through here was a loading process. We loaded into the trail leg, we turned our body. Now, if we didn't move the body at all, and we turned the muscles off in the shoulder, what would the arm do? Well, the arm would just fall straight down, right? That would be gravity. That would be a passive arm function. Now, in that same context, if we wanted that arm to go faster, and we wanted to keep that sort of passive notion of hand and arm function in the swing shape alive here, then what would we do? Well, we would take our lower body and shift really aggressively, get our hips opened up, which would pull the torso around, and that would allow the left arm to come down much faster. That's increasing the speed of the hands and the arms right from the start of the top of the downswing into the delivery. Now, there's also a third option, and this is the pulling of the hands and the arms. A lot of you at home have this question, and I've been asked this probably way more times than I care to admit over the 21 years that I've taught this game, is it okay for me to pull my arms down from the top of the swing? You can introduce a pull of the hands and the arms. You can introduce that if you have your body moving in the correct sequence and you land in the correct spots. But under no circumstance should you start with that movement just to get the hands and arms to start going fast. That's why we call the section above chest height to chest height is your slow zone. Not because we want you to think about moving slow, but we want you to be patient. We want you to get the body in the right spot. The hands and the arms are going to be active at this point because you're creating stretch in a very specific order in the body. Think about this. In the world of sequence, in any hitting or throwing sport, your body is responding, or your brain is responding, to muscle tension signals that you feed it. That's why we talk so much about sequence. That's why if you followed the video content, we talk so much about the importance of having a good sequence. Think about that whole analogy now. If you go down the pathway of trying to do things with your hands and your arms out of sequence, then your body's going to shut down. And one of the biggest faults that we see from people is when you get up to the top of the swing. Where's your golf club? Go up to the top of the swing. If we start pulling the arms down just to get them to go really fast into P5 or right down into P6 when we start letting the club go, then where's your upper body going to be? Well, that momentum and inertia that you just put in the golf club is now working in this way. And you should be trying to go that way. That's what gets people into trouble in the first place. So learning how the shoulders and the arms are going to function with this really key move that we're going to teach you in step number 1 is the most important piece of this puzzle. If you can do these two moves correctly and marry them together, then what you do for the rest of the downswing is just posting up and releasing the golf club. And that's where the fun starts to really happen. Let's go ahead and take a look at step number 1. You guys ready? Of course they are. That was a really long-winded opener. Like and subscribe. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up button for us. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post it up below and we'll help you out as best we possibly can. So here's what we're going to do in step number 1. Is we're going to teach you a great way for you to be able to get your weight shifted and get your hips in a perfect spot so that you can finish off the job on the way down. Now remember, what we're looking for in a good transition, whether you have a long golf swing that's fast tempo or a short golf swing that's got slower tempo or fast tempo, what you want to look for is that when your weight transfer is fully complete on the lead side, what should the hips look like?
Hips should be back to square.
Your hips should be back to a square position. How much weight do we want to have underneath the lead foot at this point?
We want to be 80–90% by that point.
80 to 90%. So if you think about the hips and knees getting back to a square position and 80 to 90% of your weight moving underneath your lead foot, and you learn how to make this movement happen, now what you've done is you've set yourself up for the second piece. So you're going to be focusing in on just those key points in this first step. We're not going to be thinking about the arm and the shoulder. Now how we're going to practice this is we're going to set up with our arms across our shoulders. And I know a lot of you at home have probably seen these age-old drills we call like the stride and stomp drill. I think Jace learned this the other day that that's not one of my most favorite drills when it comes to swinging the golf club. Jace, why is that not my favorite drill?
Because it's giving you something that you can't take to the golf course. It's not the same feeling.
It's not relatable because you're not going to be moving your feet like that on the golf course. Yes, it's a good way for people to start to feel flow and fluidity, but I like to give you things that are relatable. Now, in the past, we've seen lots of golfers do what with their lead foot as they start to go into their backswing.
You know, some of the greatest golfers of all time, we've seen a couple of them do this.
Right. So the lead foot comes up off the ground. Now, what is this doing in the swing shape? Well, this is making sure that we get our weight transferred over to our trail side, number one, but it's also allowing the body to have some fluidity here. It's allowing the body to have some rotational mobility. That's what I want you to think about. Now, if you already have your hips in a position where they're over-rotated, then you don't really need to do this. But you want to start out by having this be one of your trigger points that you're going to use, much like a Bryson. So we're going to take a good shift and load into our trail side. The head should move off the ball about an inch, inch and a half or so max, and you're going to be trying to get your body turned to about fully 90 degrees. So your right shoulder should be up, left shoulder should be down. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to keep this trail shoulder back in behind your head, and I want you to plant that left ankle down in the ground. Now, by focusing in on the weight, moving down into the ground, and where it lands in your foot, 80%, 90%, what that's forcing the hips to start to do, let's watch this really closely. So when he puts that foot down in the ground like he means it, that's forcing that left hip to start to move back. It's starting to get the hips back to that square position. That's the beauty of that sort of trigger move to start the downswing. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've always been a little bit more against it in the backswing for a lot of players in the modern day golf swing, because why? Well, because it doesn't give you any sort of restriction to body turn, and most of you run into issues with having your hips turn way too much and your body over-rotating, and that's just bad for your spine, it can be bad for your hips too, and it can force you to recover. But for this drill, you can use this as a way for you to have that sort of trigger point, and you can use it without having your foot come up off the ground when you start to get really good at it as you start to advance. Now, how I want you to do this, again, is we're gonna focus on doing maybe 10 to 15 reps or so, just turning and loading into our trail side. You wanna get this trail shoulder up behind the head, and then as you get yourself moving onto your lead side and put that left ankle in the ground, you want to feel like this shoulder stayed right where it is, and all of that pressure just moved down on the lead side. Now, if you do this properly, your head should move a significant amount, probably in front of where it started at address. But if you look at that shoulder line again really closely, this is the key to this whole part. Watch this very closely. This lead shoulder is in a down and depressed position. If it's not down and depressed, watch this. Shrug it really tight to your chin and now depress. See how much more relaxed he is? That right there is the key to your success, is making sure that your shoulders work in a down and depressed position, and make sure that your torso remains closed, or the back to the target. Now remember, when you're moving onto your lead side, under no circumstance is your back gonna truly stay to the target, because your hips just started to shift and unwind. That's pulling the shoulders around. But that appearance of what we just gave you is what this drill should look like. So Jace, let's go ahead and walk through some reps now. And we're gonna start out really slow and chunky. So we're gonna lift that left heel up slightly. Remember, this is gonna help you get 80 to 90% of your weight underneath your right leg. Now the first move is to feel like we're keeping our back to the target, or the right shoulder up behind our head, and push that left ankle into the ground. Do not go easy with this movement. Do not stop trying to put pressure down because your head is moving too much. Allow the head to move along with the body. Keep going. So pressure shift, good. Put that ankle down to the ground, stay closed, good. So what you should see from a face-on perspective is that the outside portion of your lead side flank should be very vertical. The head position should be slightly in front of where it was. The shoulder should be neutral, but turned to where the right shoulder is up and behind the head. If you meet those requirements, then you can continue on with the drill. Step number 2. This is where we get to start having some fun.
This is where we get to add the speed.
This is where we get to start adding in the shoulder and the arm function that's gonna be taking place in the swing. Now we want you to think about this. We got a little analogy we like to use with people that's, this is actually one that Jace kind of came up with yesterday, and I don't like the entire analogy when it comes to the swinging of the golf club, but it was a good analogy for you to understand what the arms are gonna be doing, and that was using an axe, right? If you were chopping some wood. If you were chopping some wood and you had a big piece of wood in front of you that you were getting ready to hit, well, you would go up and then you would come straight back down in it. But you wouldn't just do that with your arms. Your body would be assisting it, just like it's doing in the golf swing, just in a much different manner. And if you think about your arms on the way down, you're using some strength through the muscles in your shoulders, and you're using some strength through the hands and the arms. The same thing applies in the golf swing. We don't want you to go down this pathway where your entire golf swing is just gonna be centered around passive arm and shoulder natured movement. You need to have some activation if you want the hands and arms to go really fast. But I want you to think about this first critical move in transition that we're gonna teach you. when we start to marry in the shoulder and arm function as the power move in transition that needs to be facilitated by the weight shift into the lead side. Now, going back to the stuff that we talked about in the right arm drill last week, we talked about what the right arm's function was, right? We said it elevates and flexes. The left arm is just elevating. It's responding to what the right arm is doing in the backswing. On the way down, what I want you to remember is that when the left arm starts to get fully into its completed position and the weight starts to shift, what's going to happen here is that your left shoulder is actually going to go into protraction quite a bit. So that protraction is that kind of that shrugging or that rolling of the shoulder. And that movement right there is what we need to get rid of really quickly. And so what we're going to think of is kind of like Sergio Garcia's old thought about pulling a chain out of the wall. But we're going to be doing it by just thinking about pulling our bicep down underneath our chest. So underneath our pectoral muscle here. So when we get up to the top of the swing, we're going to think about pulling this part of the arm down underneath the pec, and we're going to stop. But we're going to do that with the proper sequence of movements. We're going to plant the left foot in the ground, and we're going to pull that left arm down. And you're going to start to feel the arm and the shoulder kind of get that stretch in it. And we're going to back check this position, and then we're going to start putting some fluidity to it.
That's right.
So let's go ahead and start doing this movement kind of married together with the weight shift. Okay, so turn up to the top. So the first move is to, yep, exactly. Put that left foot in the ground, make sure the hips and knees get back to square, and then pull that bicep down below the chest. Okay, you should be seeing that your lead shoulder is now down away from your ear as far as it can get. Your shoulders still look closed. All of your weight is on your lead side. Get connected to this movement. Okay, so I want you to do 10, 15 kind of slow, choppy reps just like this. And as you start to know that you're hitting these positions correctly, you've got the sequence of those movements. Now let's start turning up the gas a little bit here to start seeing what Jace is going to feel as far as some stretch starting to happen. So let's go ahead and do this dynamically. I want you to be able to stop though, and I want you to feel like it's a real golf swing, but you're going to have some control of the arm. Okay, good. Now, when you started to change direction onto your lead side, what did you feel?
When I started to change direction, you know, I felt my left shoulder really move downwards, but it also started to feel way more stretched out and less contracted.
Okay, so you felt that. So
yes.
You felt the stretch kind of run through here.
Absolutely.
Now, going back to that analogy where I talked about the arm swinging down passively, that change of direction in the swing shape is what's allowing the muscles in the lead shoulder to start getting some of that load. Remember, your job in the golf swing is not to load and hold tension. Your job is to load and get rid of it. And what you just saw Jace demonstrate there was exactly how the arms and the shoulders should function in that transitional phase. We're not trying to make the hands go fast, but the hands are responding to that movement. That in turn is making the club go faster, and that's helping you accelerate the hands and arms down through the bottom of the acceleration zone and into the speed zone. That's the best way to encompass what the actual hand and arm function should be in the golf swing. So now let's go ahead and do 10 to 15 reps where it's done really dynamically. Okay, remember, just pull that bicep down underneath the chest. Okay, remember, as you're starting to turn back, you should be stomping down on that left ankle and bringing that bicep down. Stop and check your checkpoints here. Make sure you've got 80 to 90% of the weight underneath the lead ankle. Hips and knees are back to square. Shoulders are still closed. Left shoulder down and pressed. I know a lot of you at home are probably thinking to yourself, that's way too much to think about. It's not a lot to think about. It's left ankle, stomping it into the ground. If you do that, that's taking care of what the hips should be doing, and it's lowering the bicep down simultaneously. Now, what do you think we do from there? Well, we pull the speed up out of the ground, right? We're gonna start posting up and getting that arm to fling. Now, Jace, here's what we're gonna do. Now we're gonna start finishing off this task with our post-up move. Our post-up is just a way for us to say we're gonna create stability with the body. We're gonna slow the body down and let the hands and the arms of the club go really fast past us. Now, this post-up move is going to be done by you driving your left ankle into the ground. So you're going to be pushing into the ground. You'll hear a lot of golf instructors say, push the lead hip back. I prefer you to actually use your lead side obliques to help rotate the hip back as you're pushing into the ground. And when you do that, the most imperative piece of this puzzle is that you keep your head and your chest quiet. It's already moved into position if you followed steps number 1 and 2. You're already in a great spot. Don't try to screw up the party here by letting your head and your chest come up or trying to get it into a certain spot. Just keep it very quiet. And as we start to make this post-up move happen, we're gonna fling that left arm all the way through. So Jace, let's go ahead and finish off the job here. Actually, let's show him a little bit slow and chunky first. Let's be nice to him.
Okay.
So up to the top, let the left arm get pulled down and stop. Okay, now from there, you're gonna post up. So keep the head and chest down. Good, exactly. And that arm is gonna be swinging on through, okay? So now we're gonna start marrying it together. So it's load, left foot down to the ground, post up, let that arm swing through. Start picking up the pace here. Okay, good. The arm is actually going to slow down inside of this movement as well. The club will be releasing at this point, but I want you to remember, a lot of you get into trouble with slowing the arms down to try to get the hands to bat at it. So if you try to keep the left arm moving into like a wall on the lead side of the body, that's a good way for you to be able to get the correct sensations going here. At that point, the club is going super, super fast, and you won't have that flippy, scoopy sort of appearance come out of it. Let's go ahead and do a few more. Good. Okay, now what I see is in transition now is that his hips and knees get back to a square position and his lead arm is at parallel to the ground. And then I see his hips opening up and the arm getting swung through there. We back check this stuff on camera to know that we're ready to start hitting golf balls. But more importantly, before you start going to back check things, how is your connection to the movements?
You know, at MyGolfDNA, we like to use a rating system on 1 to 3. I would say it's a 3. It was very easy for my brain to really connect to it, and I really do think I'm ready to move on and take a look on camera.
Exactly. So we use a rating system with all of our students that helps you kind of be accountable for your actions. We're not going to go into that in today's video, but that's a good way for you to think about, hey, I'm really connected to these movements. You give yourself a rating, and you're ready to rock and roll. So Jace feels like he's really connected to it, so we can start adding the golf club back in the mix. Now, when we add the golf club back in the mix, we're still staying connected to what we just did. But the trail hand and arm is going to come onto the golf club here as well. And you're going to start making some swings to see if you can feel it. If you can, back check it real quick. If everything looks good, you're starting to feel like things are going really fast now, and you've got the ability to start feeling like it's a real golf swing, then start hitting some golf balls. So Jace, let's go ahead and get the club back in here.
Let's do it.
I like that your name's on your grips.
I don't want to lose them.
All right, so they're not going to hit any balls just yet. But let's go ahead and start thinking about left foot up. Okay, body turn, get that left shoulder down, or put that left bicep down. Okay, good. So you can kind of do some drills that are slow and choppy at first like this. You watch how he practices it. He wants to create some good movement and get connected to it. Okay, good. Now let's go ahead and start trying to pick up the pace a little bit. How's it feel?
Feels really good. See if I can add a little speed here now.
Feel a little bit of activation there in the shoulder now?
Oh yeah, it's feeling really stretched out.
Now we're starting to produce a lot of hand speed. We're starting to get the hands to move really fast from the top of the backswing down into that delivery. Now, one final piece of advice here. A lot of you hang on to too much tension in your hands because you've been trying to manipulate the club for way too long in your life. For this to work properly, we don't want to sustain the pull of the handle and we don't want to have the club working against us. We want the club to fly. So your job should be to keep the tension levels down. If your tension levels are down, the club should pull itself to the low point that you established and it should rotate in relationship to the swing plane that you have it on, and that's it. If you can do that and you can stay committed to this whole sequence of movements and keep your grip pressure light, you're gonna see some good success. So let's do a 1-to-1 here. Let's get the people on their way. Okay, how'd that feel?
Felt good.
Okay,
really
let's go ahead and
connected
get a shot.
to it.
And there you have it.
There you have it.
So this is the drill that teaches you now how the arms should function through transition, so you can get some speed going here. Yes, we do want you to start out by being passive with the arms to refine the sequence, but you start feeling that activation. You can have the hands and arms, you can feel some of that active pull to get it down in front of your body, but just be fully committed that the post-up needs to happen and your tension levels need to happen or stay way lower in your hands and your arms, and you're gonna be much more successful when it comes to the game of golf. We wish you guys the best. We'll see you guys in the next video.